Kuzu Zampo and a very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to our show. This is BBS Channel 2 and I'm Karma Dendup, your host for the next 1 hour. This is the Jangchubshing, your weekly dose of Buddhism. And for those of you who are watching this program for the first time, what we do on this show is we discuss Buddhist truths with Buddhist masters, Buddhist practitioners, scholars and experts to better comprehend the vast and timeless Buddha Dharma. The topic of our first program for the second season of Jangchubshing is a discourse on the ongoing Kangjur transmission, which is being transmitted by His Holiness the J. Khenpo at Kunsal Potong. And our guest for this special episode is Venerable Shingkhar Lam, Lama Ngodup Dorji. Lama is the 15th generation Shingkhar Lam. Shingkhar Decheling and Dogri Rinchen Junel Hagangs, which are located in Bomthang Zongkhag, were established by Longchen Ramjam in the 1350s. Lama is also the founding secretary of the Ati Foundation, and Lama actively organizes teachings and Bazaguru recitations around the country. Lama also organizes science workshops and life skills education for the monastics. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before we begin, an opening remark or a comment from Lama?
Yes. I'd like to thank BBS for having me here to discuss a very important topic that's happening right now. So, actually, I'm also privileged to be here, sitting in the place where many of the masters have, come and talk. So, it is indeed a privilege. And as we all know right now, His Holiness, the 70th J. Khenpo of Bhutan, Tukuchima Chedak, is giving the oral transmission of the whole teaching of the Buddha, what is known as Kangjur to us.
Yes.
And we the Bhutanese, as well as people from around the neighboring countries, are fortunate to be here receiving this rare teaching, and especially in a setting like Bhutan, where it's so peaceful and so nice, and a country that's a heaven in itself.
Yes.
So the oral transmission was requested by the Shungdrasang and by the Tukus, Lams, Libes, Khenpos from around the country, from different religions.
Yes.
So all of us are just sort of working right now so that it ends, in a very fruitful nature.
Yes. And from what I hear, the nation is also aware of what is happening up there. Is right now it is going on very well, given the size of the population of the people who are up there receiving the oral transmissions. Now, before we get into the Kangjur and the oral transmissions, what has come to become, like in the beginning of the show, that we in the Sikh tune of the Jangchubshing, there is a question which keeps popping up, which I have been asking all of my guests previously as well. So the same question I wanted to ask Lama is, who is the Buddha?
Well, if you have asked many, I'm sure that you have the answer. But it's as simple as it can be, and it's as difficult it could be. I think we should begin by looking at who we are.
Yes.
That's crucial, and I think it all boils down to that. Even when we refer to as Buddha, who's somebody who's enlightened. If we generally sort of really look within ourselves and try to recognize the true self of who we are naturally, genuinely, I think then that itself is Buddha. And the whole teaching here, even referring to Kangjur right now, 103 to 108 volumes are all trying to explain or to sort of instruct you or to guide you to get to that realization. So once you realize that, well, you may say that you and I are Buddhas,
The reason why we started the Jangchubshing was also for the fact that the youth of Bhutan especially, and actually not just restricting it to the youth of Bhutan, even older, are unfamiliar with Buddhist terms and the Buddhist philosophy in general. So the very word Kangjur, what does that mean? If Lama could share that with us.
Oh, well, it's Kangjur, but then literally it's Kajur.
Yes, Kajur.
Yeah, because Ka being, Karagi, we are saying that Kanamme,
So
command, or
a verbal,
the speech, so to speak, from a high authority. So here we're using Buddha as an authority and his words as command, and that's Ka.
Nice.
And Jur means Buddha taught in India, right?
Nice.
Buddha taught in India, and we suppose that he taught in sort of Sanskrit, but there are people who say that he taught in Pali. But in any case, the charm of Buddha's speech is that if I was there at that time and I was a Buddhist, probably I would have heard it in Dzongkha or whatever language I would be speaking right now.
Nice.
So that years later got translated as the Buddha Dharma flourished towards north to Tibet now. When that got translated, that changed. The Sanskrit or Pali had to change its language to suit the audience at that time of the particular place, and that is change or jur. So that's Kangjur actually.
Nice. And how many, Lama did speak about it in the beginning, but how many volumes of, because we hear that the Jekembo is just finished one volume today, sometimes it's finished 1.5, but we don't know how many volumes are there. And if Lama would share that with us.
Different the blocks have different volumes.
Yes.
For example, what His Holiness is giving up there is Narthang Parma.
Yes.
The print that occurred is in Narthang in Tibet.
Yes.
And that's what we have here in Bhutan. The well-known scripts that we have is Narthang, Dege, and Lhasa.
Yes.
And what His Holiness is giving, as I said, is Narthang Parma. And Narthang Parma has about 103 volumes.
103.
Yes. And then, the Lhasa Parma being 108. So, yes, His Holiness is really good at, his speed. And he's doing it 1 to 2 sometimes. So, yes, that's what's going on.
And I'd come back to the volumes. Lama, what we have, what is happening in Kwinsal Phorang right now is known as the Lung, is it?
Yes.
The Lung. And what we hear is, there is so much to the Buddha Dharma that 1 hour could not capture. But if Lama would share with us that Wang, Lung, and Trila, if I'm not mistaken, there are 3 ways of transmitting the Buddha Dharma. So if Lama can share something on that.
Wang, Lung, and Tri, that's like the whole package for a practitioner.
Yes.
Wang, as we say, is like empowerment, and it empowers you when you receive an empowerment from an authorized master who is authorized to give the empowerment for, let's say Vajrakilaya or Amitabha or any other deities for that matter.
Yes.
That empowers you to practice that particular deity or the teachings. So Wang now is empowerment. And then Lung is like, normally when we say in Dzongkha, let's say it's like Chaptengi Lung. So for Wang and then Tri, it's Lung is like the support for both this Wang and Tri.
Yes.
Lung, again, it's His Holiness giving to us right now.
Yes.
And His Holiness has received it from His Holiness late Dujum Rinpoche, and it goes back. We can trace it back all the way to the Buddha.
Yes.
And that sort of authenticates that the words spoken by the Buddha are still intact and spoken in the same manner, rather than sort of diluting it. So we're in safe hands from that, I think. And then Tri now actually means to sort of lead you on the path. And that is like you have been empowered to practice this, you have a support of Lung, and then you engage yourself into a practice. And then your teacher sort of instructs you to the core instruction, gives you the core instruction so that you can really achieve even enlightenment at that point, right?
Yes.
That's Tri.
Yes. And the way of an empowerment, because we keep hearing that the Jekembo conducted the Melam Chenmo, and then he on the completion of that Melam Chenmo he gave Tsewang. So that is also an empowerment in the sense of what Lama just shared about with Wang, Lung, and Tri. So if I as a devotee received this Tsewang, what am I actually supposed to do after, like, what did I actually receive there?
I think you're supposed to live long because
Less.
Sewang literally means empowerment for longevity.
Less.
So you're supposed to live long.
So there is a different category to empowerment?
Yes. When you receive a Sewang, let's see that, Sewang means you're getting the empowerment for your long life, right?
Yes.
But then just going there to receive any empowerment, be it Sewang or any other, is that you do get a blessing.
Yes.
You do get a blessing. But what you need to achieve is that after you are being empowered by the Lama so that you can engage yourself into that practice. So you, as somebody who received that empowerment, have to engage yourself into the practice so that you eventually realize the true nature of the empowerment itself. So then alone will you be able to live long, or that the practice will take impact. Otherwise, yes, there's this blessing.
Now, what is being transmitted by His Holiness the Khenpo in Kyunsal Phodang is the Lungla. And before we get into the details of the 103 volumes, if Lama could share with us, because I feel this would be beneficial in my little bit of reading of Buddhist translated works, I came across the Kyunsal Lam Lungla. And it begins with this very interesting analogy of a pot, of 3 examples of a pot being turned, and pot with a hole, and pot with poison in it. So if Lama could share with us, and I feel that this would benefit the viewers not only in the instance of going up to Kyunsal Phodang and receiving the blessings and the transmission, but maybe in other, whenever they associate themselves. I myself find it useful even when I'm attending a lecture.
Yes, it does not only apply for somebody who's receiving guang or lung or tea. You can apply that analogy to throughout your daily life, actually. What you say is that normally we say naomit kabuk tabuchen. Literally saying that, for example, let's take Kyunsal Phodang now. That you're up there one fine day, and His Holiness is just giving the lung, and you're sitting in one of the tents up there. You're physically present. But if you're not listening, you're wasting your time. So you don't want to do that. So it's like His Holiness doing his part, and unless you sort of open up your mind, being the vessel at that time, you would be just inverting the pot, so that how much ever water you pour upon it, a drop is not going to get in, and the pot is still going to be dry. So likewise, unless you get with devotion, faith and devotion, if you just sort of go there, receive the teachings, listen carefully, if not anything, you're getting the blessings. Otherwise, you'd be a pot that's upside down.
And it's applicable even with the fact that if you are, nowadays our most popular thing is the WeChat. So if you're up there and His Holiness is giving you this priceless dharma and you're too busy with your WeChat, means it's like as if you're physically...
Yes, you're physically there, but you're in some other space, kind of some other world. And then even if you're there and then you're listening, but then by listening to a teaching, what one expects, or what the teacher as well as this disciple expects here, the outcome is that you change for a better, to be a better person at least. If not, sort of recognize yourself and say that you're enlightened and all. But then that can be done because by only listening to the teachings carefully and then contemplating on it, and then eventually realizing the meaning of it. Then only will you be able to ripen into the teachings that a Lama gives you. So you're there, you're listening, but if you just don't practice or contemplate, all those things, then it's like you have the water in the bowl, but then unfortunately there's it's a punch from somewhere below that it all drips out. At the end of the day, it's almost like same as inverting the pot itself. That doesn't help either.
So it's like, I think in Bhutan we keep saying, don't take it in from one ear and let it go out of the other. So that would be the second fault
Yes.
of
Yes.
receiving the
Yes.
Dharma.
What I normally try to say is that, you listen to things,
Yes.
then sort of try to entertain your guest before it leaves from the other side.
Yes,
So that,
yes.
it's,
Yes.
like he gets his fair share.
Yes.
Then the third one goes that you have the pot, you're there in the teaching, listen to teaching, and then you're trying to contemplate.
Yes.
But being human or being having a deluded mind, we have all the negative emotions just feeding into us,
Yes.
thousands.
Yes.
So if you just sort of attachment, for that matter,
Yes.
if you're just sitting there listening, and then you're listening, you're trying to think, but at the same time you're also thinking about your families, your foes, your loved ones, and all those things.
Yes.
It's being mixed with the virtue that is being
Poured.
poured into you at that point. So the example here, when it comes to the pot, is like, you have a pot, you have a delicacy in that, but it's mixed with poison.
Yes.
So unless you sort of try to get rid of the poison and enjoy the food,
Yes.
you might as well die.
Yes.
That doesn't help either.
Yes. Yes.
At the end,
Yes.
what the Buddha is saying is that I can only teach you. And that's what Buddha at this time is a teacher.
Yes.
We don't have the opportunity to see or find Buddha in real, in the form that we see in the Hagang or on the paintings.
Yes.
But to us, a Buddha is a teacher.
Yes.
And his teachings are the path that should lead us to where he has been.
Now, these were the three faults, so-called faults of how not to be or how not to receive the Dharma. Is there anything in reference to how to be when you're receiving the Dharma?
Well, we can just use the same analogy, actually.
Yes.
How about if you just have a nice pot, just, not inverted, but
Clean.
Clean and facing up, ready
Empty.
to receive the liquid or the solid things, whatever is being used for.
Yes.
Then let's not have a broken pot, for that matter, right? Let's
Yes.
have a healthy pot, let's say.
Healthy, clean, nice, and
Yeah.
essentially empty also, like.
Yeah, essentially empty, yes.
Yes.
Empty comes at the last, because you don't want all of those poisons in there.
Yes.
So you have to have, it ready to receive, clean and nice,
Yes.
minus all the delusions.
Yes.
That itself can be the example, rather
Yeah.
than just sort of having to go down there.
Less, less. Now, from the three faults, the 103 volumes that His Holiness is transmitting to the audience, to the public up there, I believe it is also divided into three categories. So if Lama could share something about that. Like that.
Well, Buddha taught like 84,000, 84,000 topics.
Yes.
And up until the third sort of congregation, it didn't really, they didn't really put it down into text writing.
Yes. Yes.
So when they put that into writing, so they just had to sort of segregate the similarities of where, what is discipline, what is, next, and then how we put that into a basket, for that matter. We say basket of teachings,
Yes.
or
Yes.
Tripitaka, the three baskets. And the three basket, the main topics in three basket would be Vinaya, which is discipline.
Yes.
And His Holiness just gave that, and he finished that
Yes.
over a week back,
Yes.
2 weeks even.
Yes.
And that after that is the sutra part, or the Dode,
Yes.
and that's more like wisdom, or sort of explaining things, And then you have Abhidharma or Nyumba,
Yes.
where you have this thing Sherab Kivaltima, or its wisdom part. So
Yes.
these are the three big baskets that
Yes.
the teachings of the Buddha have been sort of classified into.
Yes. So essentially, the 103 volumes, which His Holiness is transmitting to the public, it's divided into three Pitaka as the three baskets: the Vinaya, the Sutra, and the Abhidharma.
Right.
And Lama, while you were sharing this, you were speaking about that it wasn't put down until the third council. So if Lama could share about what, for our viewers and for my sake, which were the preceding councils, and which council is Lama referring to when you're sharing about the...
And Buddha, when he taught, he
Yes.
had his students, as we know, right?
Yes.
Hundreds and thousands.
Yes.
They were arhats or dachambas.
Yes.
And they had this capability of, like a photographic memory for that matter, let's say.
Yes.
You just heard it once, you have had it.
Yes.
So, and at the same time, there was also this practice where, say, 100 of the Buddhist students gathered in Buddha's absence.
Yes.
Then one of us would be reciting the teachings of the Buddha that I heard.
Yes.
And that all of us heard. And if I'm reciting it, without proper order, then it's advised that sometimes, when he sits down, you're supposed to say, correct him by saying that, well, you did a good job, but, you have to maintain this order, because that's how the Buddha taught. And there had been reasons for that.
Yes.
Then, if somebody teaches as Buddha taught, then of course he was applauded, right? And of course, interestingly, because everybody heard him, because everybody had this photographic memory,
Yes.
that flaws wasn't there.
Yes.
So after about 30, 40 years, I'm not certain exactly how many years later, but then, yes, the disciples of the Buddha sat in for the council, and then they just did the first council. Then, I think it was next after, during the son of King Bimbisara, Ajatashatru, I think, that he did it for they did the second council, and then later in Kashmir. And only in Kashmir, when they did the third council, they really put it down to writing.
Yes.
Because I have heard the same teachings of the Buddha. I have understood the same.
Yes.
But of course, then if we are two of us, we hear it differently in the way that it suits us better.
Yes.
So by then, 18 sections of the disciples of Buddha had formed.
Yes.
And according to the prophecy, all of those 18 sections were legal and were the teachings in full. But yet there were 18 sections.
Yes.
So as to not really sort of, make the teachings scatter further, I think that's when they started to put it into writing.
Yes. Yes. This is the third council where they
Yes.
put it down. And the way this is supposed to be transmitted, is there an order? Because obviously Lama just spoke about the order and category. So when the Kangjur is being transmitted, is the Vinaya supposed to be given first? Is there any reason behind that? Or
you can say that. But then His Holiness was saying that different masters have different ways of propagating the teaching.
Yes.
It doesn't seem that there's this order, but what His Holiness does is the order that we just spoke about: Vinaya first, Sutras, and then Abhidharma.
Yes.
And that's how I think when you just do Laba Tsutingi Laba, I think Sherpa Laba and Laba Tingizingi Laba.
Yes.
So these are the three stages that His Holiness is following right now.
Yes.
So all in all the 84,000 teachings that we have had so far actually boils down to taming our mind.
Yes. Yes.
And interestingly, Buddha taught 21,000 to tame, attachment.
Yes.
21,000 to tame,
Ignorance.
Hatred, or
Yes.
then ignorance, and then to tame everything, 21,000. So that 21,000 into 4 makes it 84,000. And it all boils down to one thing called mind. So should we tame that mind, then I think that's it.
Lama, you were sharing with us that so far what has His Holiness has already completed the transmission of the Vinaya, and the Sutra is going on right now. And I was hoping, like I'd requested Lama before the show, that we would be able to do at least as an auspicious Tendrela, that we would also be able to have Lama 3 times here to share with us about the Vinaya. Today I was hoping that we could focus on the Vinaya, and next time around Lama could share about the Sutra and then the Abhidharma. So if Lama could share something about the Vinaya, like how many volumes are there maybe?
Well,
And
that's the easy part.
less.
Well, His Holiness just did 13 volumes of the Vinaya. That's how
Yes.
much it is in Kangjur.
Less.
The 13 volumes.
And what is in those 13 volumes?
Dulwa, that's what I think
Yes.
is
word
more
Vinaya
understandable to us.
Less.
Dul means to tame.
Less.
And all the 13 volumes sort of talks about how to tame yourself.
Less.
So if you just, your attachment, your hatred, all of this, if you just tame all of those, I think you become, you're ready to move on to the second part. And then on to the second part, the third part.
Yes.
So Dulwa here, the Vinaya would be like the ground or the foundation, whereupon you can start to build first and the second and third floor.
Yes.
So it literally sort of tames you.
Yes.
Yes.
Is it because like Lama touched upon the Labasum and Dilwa. So Dil means, does it have to do with, because obviously like Lama shared, the whole Dharma is about taming your mind. The Vinaya, does it have like codes of conduct or ethics, or is it something that teaches you what to observe and what not to observe? Does the Dilwa, like Lama was sharing, could you share something about that, what it concerns itself?
If you just go into details, yes, the lay practitioners has certain number of the discipline that they have to follow. A monk has to follow that, a novice has to follow that, that many numbers, and nuns have to follow them. So there are these details.
Yes.
But if you just boil it down again, it's how you tame your mind. So that's why some of the famous yogis would say, like, if you tame your mind, then all these 13 volumes, as in any other, other volumes, it doesn't really have much of a use.
Yes.
But because we have all those, we are so indisciplined that we need to first discipline ourselves.
Yes.
And that's, as a lay practitioner, you start with the basics, and then you move on to the novice monk, and then you come to the fully ordained monk.
Yes.
Well, at the same time, you also have monk and as well as nuns.
Yes.
So when it comes to the fully ordained monks, then you have almost about 250 vows that you have to keep.
250?
250.
Yes.
So that's the fully ordained monk. And that's how far it goes. And then also in that 13 volumes, it explains as to the discipline. Like Buddha didn't just sort of set up this 13 volumes and said, this is what you have to pull and push it to you.
Yes.
As we went on, for example, if you just say myself, if I have to sort of be somewhere and I have to behave in a manner that suits that area.
Yes.
So the Buddha here prepared me to be, to make myself presentable in that environment.
Yes.
So to be able to present yourself on the path of the Dharma, he prepared that you don't sort of stray away from the path.
Yes.
That you take care of yourself, that you're more mindful,
Yes.
So that if you have all of this, then the only thing is that you're on the path and you start to move.
Yes.
And the risks are much smaller than moving on to what we call Tantra, where a lot of risk is involved.
Yes.
Although people these days seem to like Tantra a lot.
Less. So it's, in a sense, can't be the same, use the same example, but there's this popular cliched saying that when you're in Rome, live like the Romans. So in that very same sense, it's like the Buddha say that enlightenment, nirvana were Rome. Then the Vinaya or the Dilwa is a way of training you to be able to recognize that state.
Well, actually, he just said, he said that.
Less.
He said, Dula yuldatun.
Less.
Meaning, that the discipline has to be in accordance with the environment that you live in.
Less.
So it's not that, you can't change kind of thing, but
Less.
yes, you have to change so that it suits that environment, so that it benefits you
Less.
to be on the path, so that you benefit a larger number of beings.
Less.
I think that I think is crucial.
Less. And Lama, share with us, like, because Lama spoke to us about the category of of say what a layperson's precepts and vows are supposed to be. All of this is included in the 13 volumes now.
Yes, everything.
Yes.
Well, a 13 volume is like everything. Then if you go to Ashedra,
Yes.
you have one volume.
Yes. This 13 condensed.
Condensed into one volume.
Yes.
So that's what you. And then here, right, these days, of the 250 and plus for the nuns, unfortunately, we do not have the full ordination for nuns. Not in Bhutan, not in Tibet.
Yes.
But some do say that they have the lineage in China. So I'm not sure about that.
Yes.
So the whole volume talks about that. But then when it goes to details, it talks about what happened, where, and why was this discipline set up.
Oh,
so there's a story behind it.
Oh.
So if you just go through one of the texts, the Vinayas, one of the 13 volumes, you'll find that something happened in Kaushambi. You know, so there was this monk who just do something, and then apparently there was, I think, a lot has been looked down to the future. Because of their cleverances, they thought that if you just set up this, maybe, down the line, people who would behave, like the one that we do here, would benefit a lot. Hence, somebody who's even arhat at that point probably did something that wasn't really, in accordance with that.
Yes.
And then there would be a discipline set to rectify that. So that's what exactly we are living up to as an ardent monk.
Yes.
So all the 13 volumes have different sections where it all builds up to being how you can be disciplined.
And it's so systematic. Like just before we came on air, Lama was sharing with me about because one of the things that Lama does is you conduct science workshops as well as life skills for monks. And Lama was sharing with me about how Buddhism is mind science. And the more Lama is sharing about what are the 13 volumes about and what the Kangjur is all about, I mean, it's plain for anybody who's watching this show to understand how systematic and scientifically everything's laid down in the Dharma. So, Lama, share with us, for example, like say, I am a layperson. So if I were to practice Buddhism and the vows that are given to a lay person, what does that involve? What are the vows that I have to observe?
Well, if you were to practice Buddhism, right?
Yes. If I were to. Yes.
Well, we can start with there's a vow that just lasts for 24 hours.
Yes.
We can start for that.
Yes.
With that.
Yes.
And that it's like it goes with for that within that 24 hours you maintain certain discipline, as simple as not sitting up on a big throne.
Yes.
Or sort of not stealing, not singing, or not
but the duration is just for a day.
24 days. You take the vow now.
Yes.
In the morning. Next sunrise, your vow automatically ends.
Wow. Yes.
So that is, I think, probably the way to start.
Yes.
If you wish you want to go to practice.
If I were to practice the Dharma. Yes. And would you mind elaborating a bit further about what are the other things? Because for so much of, for myself and I'm sure the audience also, this is like a revelation that, okay, we thought you need to practice the Dharma, then you're in it for life, and obviously it is for life. But the fact that there are daily vows that you can take as well, it makes things very digestible in a sense.
Yes.
If Lama could
to
share.
me as a Buddhist, or to me as a follower of the Buddhist, or trying to follow the teachings with Buddha,
Yes.
There's nothing more charming than the teachings that the Buddha has given.
Yes.
It doesn't sort of really force you to do anything.
Yes.
It all makes you more sensible. It makes you more aware of who you are or who you want to be, for that matter.
Yes.
And it makes the environment more easier, more sociable.
Yes.
So that's like the basics,
Yes.
And that, whenever I'm asked, what Buddhism would be, I just say that it's what makes you a good human being.
Yes.
So likewise, if you just become a good human being at that point for 24 hours duration,
Yes.
you just the four root downfalls that would be to not to take a life.
Yes.
And then not to rob or steal something.
Yes.
or not to engage yourself into sexual misconduct.
Yes.
And then on top of 4, you have not to sort of consume intoxicating drinks.
Oh, yes.
And then not to sing or wear, ornaments that's sort of attractive or whatever. And then to make it, I think Dulwa here makes life more simpler.
Yes.
Yes. You don't have to adorn yourself with all those things. You don't have to have this beautiful voice to sing out.
Yes.
You don't have to risk yourself by going to slaughter somebody else or, to kill somebody else.
Yes.
You don't have to be more attached by, getting yourself into this sensual...
It's like clearing your wardrobe, getting rid of the unwanted clothes that you've been saving up for.
I think it's just going into take a nice shower, I guess, coming out fresh.
Yes.
And you do that for 24 hours.
Yes.
And you can take it again for another day, and again and again and again. And if you're comfortable, then you can move on, so that you take it for a life.
Yes. Before we move on with what is the next step, about this daily, the 4 vows that you precepts or that you can observe, is this something that I must go back to the imaginary me who's about to practice the Dharma? So if I were to do this, then can I do this by myself, or do I need a preceptor or a Lama, or do I need to go to a place and say that, see, this is what I want to take the daily vows?
Well, wouldn't it be nice to have somebody to guide you?
Obviously, less.
So often what happens is there are 2 ways of taking that vow.
Yes.
For example, if one of us is taking the vow and one of us here is a teacher,
Yes.
then you just want to say, make a commitment in front of somebody else, for that matter.
Yes.
So if you just go around and say, I did this, I want to do this, and commit, probably you're all alone that you don't really have a witness.
Yes.
So to make yourself feel more comfortable and more committed, oftentimes it's taken from a Lama who has the precepts.
Yes.
So that I think there's also a sense of guilt that you don't sort of stray away from the path.
Yes.
Then should you want to take that, and then that the environment is such that you don't have anybody to take that vows from, then you go to a temple or in front of a statue or something.
Yes.
Given the fact that the statue, for example, the Buddha statue, you look up to that as not as a clay or something, but as an object of reverence, as somebody who taught us what we're doing right now, as somebody who showed us the path to enlightenment.
Yes.
Making that image ever so present in front of us, you make a commitment so that you are not going to do this X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
That is how it lasts. And then at that point, what's important here is your commitment. That, for the lay practitioner, what you're saying is that sang nima mashargibato, meaning up until tomorrow's sunrise, I'm going to engage myself into the practice. Yes. Because you have made that commitment, the commitment automatically fails when the sun rises.
Oh. Yes. And after it's completed, say, again, going back to, I think this is the final time I'll say that, the imaginary me, I say I am practicing it, and before sunrise, it's exhausted, the commitment that I made. Is there like chokor and something that I need to do when it's completed, or?
No such chokor has been. When it comes to chokor and all those things we're talking about, mostly into Vajrayana, Tantra.
Yes.
But here, for everything, there's first we go into refuge, then we go into giving rise to bodhicitta, and then engaging ourselves into practice, and then eventually you go into dedication. So that you dedicate all the merits. It's like you go and deposit the hard-earned money, so that you can probably get an interest on it. That's what you can do at the end.
And this was the daily vows that Lama spoke about. What is the next easier thing to do, like Lama would?
Well, as you go up, it gets more harder rather than easy. So if you want to go for easier, you might want to step back.
Stick with the daily vows.
Trying to go up. Then when it comes to the novice monk, you have 13 precepts, and then once you step into that world, then it's like you go for, the next step here, again for the lay practitioner, is that there's a way you can take all of these vows for life.
For life?
Yeah, for life. You don't have to be an ardent monk. you can be a married person, but here, instead of refraining yourself from sexual misconduct, here the sexual misconduct is having sex with your partner alone.
Yes.
So that is how
Being in a committed relationship.
yes, yes. So that while it's lay, can go on for life.
Yes.
You can take that commitment for life.
Yes.
Then above that, if you just step ahead on the third step,
That's
then
the
you have to be a
novice.
celibate monk. Yes.
Yes.
That's when you start to be get into the role of celibacy.
Yes. Yes.
But at the same time, because we're talking about Vinaya here, we're talking about all of this. But then, if you just think of a very high Lama, for example, because His Holiness Jekembo received the empowerment from Dijum Rinpoche, let's say, he's somebody who we perceive as another lay practitioner.
Yes.
But a Lama of his caliber has all the three vows condensed in them.
Yes.
That's the specialty of a tantric master.
Yes. If Lama could share about the three vows, what are the three vows?
We have the Vinaya, and then after Vinaya, then we have the Bodhisattva vows,
Yes.
and then we have the tantric vows.
Yes.
So right now, when we're talking about the 13 volumes, we're talking about one.
Yes.
And then probably when you're talking about the Dene, and of course Gyude and all those things, we're talking about more on the Bodhisattva vows.
Yes.
And then when we talk more on Ju itself, then I think we're talking more on the vows of the Tantra or the Vajrayana practitioner.
Yes. Yes. And speaking with Lama, what just came to mind is, say there is a person who's up there receiving the transmission from His Holiness. Can that person go on himself and then give the Kangjur transmission? Or because right now Lama just shared about how Dijum, His Holiness Dijum Rinpoche, the Shimpib, was actually a lay practitioner outwardly, but he was a Lama who possessed the three vows, the quality of an authentic master.
Mm-hmm.
So if Lama could share something about, can anybody give, after I receive it, can I just go and be a person who gives the Kangjur transmission to somebody else, or
Probably.
what does that involve?
Well, probably if you find enough person to receive it in the first place, right?
Less. That is
but
also
actually,
there.
yes, Lung actually is like, if you just think of the water in front of us,
Yes.
we have to have a source, and
Right.
from that source, which is like few miles away from us, probably to reach us, we have to sort of bring it in a pipe,
Yes.
and then we have to have the pipe that's properly sealed so that the water is not wasted on the road.
Yes.
Then we get whatever amount that's up in the source to
Yes.
us here. So likewise, Lung here is the teachings of the Buddha that comes all the way from the Buddha
Yes.
to his disciples, all the way down to our present teacher.
Yes.
And yes, if you have received the Lung, and if you have genuinely received it in a proper manner, as we have been discussing about,
Yes.
the intention,
Yes.
the attendance that we have, the motivation that we have given rise to, the attendance that we need to, be there, ever present, the contemplation that we did. If we have all those qualities and we have received the Lung, you have received, or you have maintained an unbroken lineage.
Yes.
Means that you have the authority to give it on to another person, who can
Yes.
do that.
I want to follow up on this question as well, because after, say, a recipient of the Lungla, is there a commitment that I should be making, or is it enough for me to just receive it? The duration is supposed to be 3 months. So if I attended for 3 months, does it require me to commit to actually reading the Kangjur myself as well, or is that's not an issue?
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Less. In an ideal situation,
Actually, when we receive a teaching, be it Wang, Lung, or Ti,
Yes.
or for that matter, if there's anything that's Buddhism,
Yes.
I think, as we said, there's just one reason, and that again comes down to our mind.
Yes.
as long as that thing called mind exists, we need all of this, all of the 84,000.
Yes.
The fine day, through our practice, if we see mind as wisdom,
Yes.
then all of this, we don't really have to care about, sort of working hard to read the Kangjur, because the purpose is served. That's
Yes.
that's what it is. But then, yes, when you go to receive the lung here, what we expect, or the teacher, or the text itself expects us to be as a disciple, is that we come out after 3 months. We come out a little different.
Yes.
Maybe a point something.
Yes. A bit more patient, a bit more.
So
generous.
that you have you can engage yourself into it. And yes, reading the Kangjur is a virtuous deed. Producing it, or sort of revering it. We all know that even just sort of taking Kangjur, around in the valley to when there's a drought or something, brings rain and all those things. That's how powerful it is.
Yes.
So certainly, if you can read it, that's all the better. But beyond reading, there's more to just reading. The meaning, understanding of the meaning.
Contemplating.
Yes, to contemplate on that is more important.
Yes.
And as we contemplate on it, I think our delusions decrease, so that eventually, the sun within us shines forth.
Yes. Can a person read the words of the Buddha without the lungla?
There
Yes.
are books or scripts where, if you, let's just say that, if you can, yes, you do need to authenticate yourself with the blessings of the lung. And of course, one, you have to have. 3, yes. But then sometimes, like melam and all those things,
Yes.
for that matter. It's more or less like a little eased out kind of section,
Yes.
But as you go on, you do need to have an authorized master to instruct you on that, because the higher, the deeper you go,
Yes.
it becomes it can be more confusing without the help of a guide,
Yes.
here being our teacher. Because sometimes the codes, so that the value of the teaching is not lost, sometimes it's coded.
Yes.
So we do need somebody to decode it for us.
Yes.
But when it comes to Vinaya, we're just doing fine. And when it comes to Malam and all those things, although some Malams are really profound, tantric terminologies and all those things, but yet
Yes.
it's been a saying that, even by hearing that, we just get it, kind of.
Yes. Lama, can a person who has no prior, say, Buddhist experience in a sense, because, in modern times, what you hear now is that we were just culturally born into being Buddhist, and nobody's really practicing it as such. So, can somebody like a foreigner, say, who's not even culturally born into a Buddhist family, can he or she just go to Kinsal Padang and receive the lungla?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you do have to have an intention as to why you want to receive that. You have to have faith in the teachings, so
Yes.
that the blessing flows in. Otherwise, you'd be an inverted pot.
Yes.
So, everybody can go in, and that's why the huge preparation up there, having to set up tents and all those things. And we
Yes.
do have people from our neighboring countries.
Yes. Yes.
So it doesn't really mean that, you cannot go, but yes, you can go. But if you're going to listen to a Buddhist teaching, probably you're a Buddhist,
Yes.
I would assume.
Less. And Lama, we are almost coming to the end of our show as well. So is there anything else that Lama would like to share about the Vinaya in particular, or about the Buddha Dharma in general?
The Vinaya is a very important section of the teachings of the Buddha.
Yes.
As I said, it's like the foundation
Yes.
where you can build up a nice house for yourself.
Yes.
And in Bhutan, being a Buddhist country, we do have a lot of ordained Sangha.
Yes.
And oftentimes, with the time, sometimes we just feel that, if gelo disu kind of thing,
Yes.
But the fact is, if there are 4 fully ordained monks, it's said that one is a bodhisattva.
Yes.
We're not talking about 4, we're talking about thousands.
Yes.
So revering, because we don't have the capability of sort of recognizing who the bodhisattva is, we are safe to assume that there is, and there is actually,
Yes.
So that, the best thing we can do is to pay our respect, and by paying respect, we don't get smaller.
Yes.
We don't sort of, get smaller in size.
Yes.
On the contrary, if you just make any minimal offerings to the Sangha, that accumulates, a lot of virtue. And here again, be it Vinaya or, the Sutra or Abhidharma, all the teachings of the Buddha should be revered and, should be revered, because this itself is the path that leads us away from the suffering of samsara. So all of us here, at this point, I would like to request that each one of us are very fortunate that we are born in a country where the Buddha Dharma still exists, where genuine teachers are still available. Should we have the desire, we have a very favorable environment. So I would like to request everybody, that why not take an opportunity? Why can't we be good to ourselves? Why can't we try to free ourselves from suffering?
Yes.
That's the message I think I have.
Yes. Yes. There's a lot of news about what is actually happening in Kunsal Patrang, and Lama has been up there since day one, and before that preparing for what is happening up there. If Lama can share something about what is actually happening up there.
As you said, we were there before it started. We were there we have been talking about the program for about for months. And then we managed to prepare all of this. And I think we have a good management. We have been able to manage it quite well.
Yes.
People talk about, all this, the misuse of toilets and all those things. But then we have like 30, almost over 50, 70 toilets actually.
Yes.
Then each of those temporary camps have their own toilets.
Yes.
We have filtered water in 3 different places.
Yes.
That's, you can just, and people even wash their legs and hands and all those things,
Yes.
even from the filter water.
Wow.
And the food, because of the faithful devotees, because of the organizers spending onto it,
Yes.
we have been always hearing that the food is good. But what we lack here from the Bhutanese people is civic sense.
Yes. Yes.
Nothing is insufficient up there right now,
Yes.
but then how we use it or how we manage it, eventually how we really have, I think we do really need to, if there's anything that we need to give to the people, it's a civic sense.
Yes. To wrap up, a daily practice or a daily sadhana that Lama can share for the viewers tonight, that they can do.
Well, we live in a country where, we proudly proclaim that we are like, Tegpa Chembo,
Yes.
the greater vehicle.
Yes. Mahayana.
Yes, the greater vehicle or the Mahayana or Tegchen, whatever you want to call it. But then
Yes.
I think we should be who we're supposed to be then, right?
Yes. Yes.
So in the process, here in Mahayana or in Vajrayana, we talk a lot about compassion. And the compassion, if not anything, just the 4th stanza of Jangchubshing Chorin Bochi, Makipanam Kejuchi, Kebanyamba, Mebayang, Gone Gondo Pyorsho. I don't see a more profound prayer than this. And
Yes.
it can be as simple as just saying it in a fraction of a second.
Yes. Lama, I would like to thank Lama for making time for us. Not only does the day start early up there, it goes on till the very evening, and Lama had to make your way through the traffic scenario here, which is becoming quite horrendous here in Thimphu. And I would like to thank Lama from all of us here, from the Jangchubshing team. And to the viewers who took time to watch our show, thank you so much. I would also like to remind you that we have an email, which is jangchubshing@bbs.bt. We are on Facebook as well, and we are on YouTube. In closing, what has now come to be like a Jangchubshing tradition is what we always share is Dikpachiya Machashing. I think it would be beautiful if Lama would do the honor of sharing that with our viewers.
That is the basics of the teachings of the Buddha, I think, and that's also the top of what the Buddha taught. Digbachiyang mijashin gyawapensum sobache rangi semne yonsudu denisanchi tembain.
Less. So to commit not a single non-virtuous act, commit as many virtuous acts as possible. Tame your mind and you're a Buddha. We are 24/7, so stay tuned and do not forget our Jangchubshing slogan, which is analyze and realize. Thank you for watching.